I never thought I'd become the kind of man who tracks his wife's location through her phone. But there I was on October 12th, watching the little blue dot that represented Diane sit perfectly still at the Brennan and Associates building while she texted me about being stuck in traffic. The lie was so casual, so unnecessary. She could have just said she was working late. But the elaborate nature of the deception, I'd soon learn, was the point. Accident on Liberty Avenue, her text read. Complete standstill. Don't wait up for dinner. I stared at that unmoving dot, positioned precisely at her office building where she'd supposedly been since 7:30 that morning. My engineering mind immediately cataloged the inconsistency. If she was in traffic, the GPS should show her on a road, moving however slowly, not stationary, at her destination. It was such a small thing, but it was like finding a crack in a foundation. Once you spot the first one, you start looking for others. Drive safe, I texted back. Love you. 3 dots appeared, showing she was typing. They disappeared, appeared again. Then finally, love you too. Sorry about dinner. Tomorrow would be our 15th wedding anniversary. I'd planned to surprise her at lunch with food from Salvatore's, the Italian place where we'd had our first date back in 2008. I'd even called her assistant Rebecca 2 weeks ago to make sure Diane's calendar would be clear. Oh, Mr. Kowalski, Rebecca had said, her voice carrying an odd brightness that I'd attributed to enthusiasm. That's so thoughtful. I'll absolutely make sure she's free. She's been working so hard lately, she deserves a nice surprise. Working so hard. That phrase would later feel like a knife twist, but at the time, I'd simply agreed. Yes, Diane had been working incredibly hard since the merger 6 months ago. Leaving early, coming home late, weekend conferences, evening client calls. The stress showed in the tension around her eyes, the way she'd pour a second glass of wine at dinner, the distance in her voice when she talked about her day. I remembered the February evening when she'd first told me about the restructuring. She'd come home looking drained, her usually perfect composure cracked around the edges. They're bringing in new management, she'd said, kicking off her heels and curling into the corner of our leather couch. Everything's changing. New expectations, new processes, new everything. Change is hard, I'd said, sitting beside her, rubbing her feet like I'd done for 15 years. But you're brilliant at what you do. They'd be idiots not to see that. She'd looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You always believe in me, don't you? Always have, always will. Even when I don't deserve it. Especially then, I'd said, thinking I was being romantic. Looking back, I wonder if she was trying to confess, giving me an opening to discover what was already in motion. But I was too trusting, too secure in our life together to hear the warning. The changes started gradually. Her wardrobe shifted from the professional but comfortable style she'd worn for years to sharper, more expensive pieces. New management expects a certain image, she'd explained, modeling a $400 dress that seemed excessive for a marketing analyst role. You look incredible, I'd said, because she did. At 41, Diane had the kind of elegance that turned heads. Auburn hair she kept in a perfect bob, green eyes that could sell you anything, a figure she maintained with religious devotion to her Peloton. You don't think it's too much? I think you're perfect, I'd said, and meant it. The late nights increased. The weekend work became routine. She'd installed a lock on her home office door. I have confidential client information now with the new accounts, and would emerge at midnight looking exhausted but somehow energized. A flush in her cheeks I attributed to career satisfaction. Our daughter Emma, a junior at Penn State, noticed the changes when she came home for spring break. Mom seems different, she'd said, one evening while Diane was at another mandatory team-building session. The merger has been stressful, I'd explained. You know how dedicated your mother is. Yeah, but she's always been dedicated. This is different. She missed my call 3 times this week. She never used to do that. Work-life balance is hard, sweetheart. She's doing her best. Emma had given me a look that, in retrospect, was far more perceptive than my own. Dad, when's the last time you two did something together? Just the two of you? I'd started to answer, then stopped. I couldn't remember. Every dinner reservation had been canceled for work emergencies. Every weekend plans superseded by client needs. Every attempt at intimacy met with exhaustion. Anniversary's coming up, I'd said. I'm planning something special. Good, Emma had said. You deserve that. Both of you. Now, the night before that anniversary, I sat in our empty house. Empty because it was always empty now. Diane perpetually at work or locked in her office. I pulled up her location again. Still at the office at 9:47 p.m. I decided to do something I'd never done before. Bring her dinner at work, see this demanding new environment for myself. I picked up sushi from her favorite place and drove downtown. The Brennan and Associates building rose 30 floors into the Pittsburgh skyline, its windows glowing with the kind of light that suggested important work happening inside. I parked in the visitor section and walked to the main entrance, expecting to find it locked, planning to call Diane to let me in. But the lobby doors were open, the security desk staffed by a guard I recognized, Curtis, who'd been there for years. Mr. Kowalski, he said, surprised. Haven't seen you in a while. Bringing dinner to Diane, I said, holding up the bags. These late nights are killing her. Curtis's expression shifted to confusion. Diane? Your wife? Yes, she's up in marketing. 15th floor. Curtis typed something into his computer, frowned, typed again. Sir, when did she say she'd be here? She's been here all day, since 7:30 this morning. Curtis's confusion deepened into something that looked like concern. Mr. Kowalski, I'm not showing any badge in for Diane today. Actually, he typed more, his frown deepening. I'm not showing any badge-ins for her in months. That's impossible. Check again. He did. Then he made a phone call, speaking quietly to someone. Another guard appeared, checked another system. They exchanged looks that made my stomach drop. Mr. Kowalski, Curtis said carefully, maybe there's been a confusion. Let me call up to marketing, see if there's a system error. He dialed, spoke to someone, his face growing more uncomfortable with each response. He hung up and looked at me with the expression of someone about to deliver terrible news. Sir, they say Diane Kowalski was terminated in February, during the restructuring. The sushi bags slipped from my hands. That's not... She's here every day. She left for work this morning. Sir, would you like to sit down? Can I call someone for you? Call Jennifer Martinez, I said, remembering the HR director's name from company events. Call her right now. It was after 10 p.m., but Curtis made the call. Jennifer answered. Apparently, HR directors at major firms are always on call. She agreed to come down. 20 minutes later, Jennifer Martinez entered the lobby in jeans and a sweater, clearly called from home. She took one look at my face and guided me to a conference room. Nathan, she said gently, I'm so sorry for this confusion. Diane's position was eliminated on February 15th as part of the merger restructuring. She received a 6-month severance package with full benefits through August. She goes to work every day, I said, hearing how insane it sounded. She has projects, the Henderson campaign, the Morrison acquisition. Jennifer's face went from professional concern to personal sympathy. The Henderson campaign was canceled in January. Morrison isn't our client. They're with Sterling Associates. But she has an assistant, Rebecca. I talked to Rebecca. We don't have a Rebecca in marketing. We haven't since 2019. The room spun. 8 months. My wife had been lying about having a job for 8 months. The severance, I managed. She's still getting paid? The severance ended in August. It's October now. But she still deposits paychecks. Jennifer's expression was answer enough. Whatever Diane was depositing, it wasn't coming from Brennan and Associates. I drove home in a haze, the sushi still in Curtis's break room refrigerator. At home, I sat in my car in our garage, trying to make sense of the impossible. My wife left for work every morning. She came home from work every evening. She talked about work, stressed about work, worked on work in her locked office. My phone buzzed. Diane. Finally heading home. Sorry about dinner. This Henderson presentation is going to be the death of me. The Henderson campaign that was canceled in January for a presentation at a job she hadn't had since February. I went inside and did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I investigated my own wife. Started with our banking. Her direct deposits were still hitting our joint account every 2 weeks, but looking closer, they weren't from Brennan's payroll system. They were transfers from a savings account I didn't recognize. I tried to access it but didn't have the credentials. Moved to our credit cards. Regular charges at the parking garage near Brennan and Associates. She was maintaining the illusion even in small details. Lunch charges near the office. But also charges I didn't recognize. Restaurants in Squirrel Hill, a neighborhood nowhere near downtown. Multiple charges at the same locations, creating a pattern. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew her patterns. Our anniversary date plus Emma's birth year. I was in. Her main email showed nothing unusual, the same personal correspondence I'd expect. But browser history, even cleared, leaves traces. I downloaded recovery software, ran it, found fragments of another email account. My hands shook as I reconstructed the password. She'd used the same base with a different number. I was in. The inbox was a parallel universe. Emails from Rebecca about meetings, Tom from accounting about budgets, Linda from creative about campaigns. But the IP addresses were all wrong. They all originated from the same location, a residential address in Squirrel Hill. 4427 Walnut Street. I knew that address. Marcus Robinson lived there. Marcus had left Brennan and Associates 2 years ago to start his own consulting firm. He and Diane had worked together closely, and I'd met him at several company events. Smooth talker, expensive suits, the kind of man who ordered wine by vintage years and actually knew what he was talking about. His wife Alexandra was stunning but cold, always seemed to be calculating something behind her smile. I dove deeper into the emails. After Diane's termination, Marcus had offered her a position at his consultancy. But the timestamps told a different story. The emails about meetings were sent at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m., working hours, but always from his residential IP, never from an office. Great strategy session today, Marcus would write. The collaborative approach really works, Diane would respond. They'd turned corporate speak into their own language, and I was finally becoming fluent. The financial picture emerged next. Marcus was paying Diane $3,000 monthly as a consulting retainer. The contract was real, legally binding, but searching for work product yielded nothing. No presentations, no reports, no deliverables. She was being paid for her time, just not for marketing consultation. I found the cloud storage she thought she'd deleted. Photos that made me close the laptop and run to the bathroom, returning my morning coffee to the Pittsburgh sewer system. Diane and Marcus at his house during work hours, at restaurants during client lunches, at hotels during conferences. The Cleveland conference last month, a bed and breakfast in Ohio wine country, the Philadelphia training, a luxury hotel where they'd registered as Mr. and Mrs. Robinson. My phone rang. Diane. "Hey, honey," she said, sounding breathless. "I'm finally leaving the office. Should be home in 20." I looked at her location. She was at Marcus's house. "Long day?" I asked, surprising myself with how normal my voice sounded. "The longest. Marcus, Tom from accounting, had some issues with the numbers. We had to revise everything. The slip was small but devastating. Marcus's name, quickly covered, but not quickly enough. Drive safe, I said. I'll wait up. I had 20 minutes. I screenshot everything, emailed it all to a new account only I could access. Then I cleared every trace of my investigation and positioned myself on the couch with a book, looking like a patient husband waiting for his exhausted wife. She came in looking perfectly disheveled, hair slightly mussed as if from a long day rather than an afternoon in someone else's bed, makeup worn off just enough to suggest exhaustion rather than exertion. You didn't have to wait up, she said, kissing my forehead. Even her perfume was different, something muskier underneath her usual scent. Wanted to see you before our anniversary, I said. 15 years tomorrow. Something flickered across her face. Oh, honey, about that. This Henderson presentation is tomorrow afternoon. I can't reschedule it. On our anniversary? I know, I'm horrible. But if this goes well, it could mean a promotion. We could finally take that trip to Europe you've been wanting. The trip I'd been wanting. She'd been the one pushing for Europe back when we still made plans together. Whatever you need to do, I said. She studied my face, perhaps noting something different in my tone, but then smiled and headed upstairs. I'm going to shower. The office air conditioning was broken today. I feel gross. I listened to the water run, washing away evidence of her actual day. Then I made my decision. Tomorrow's surprise lunch would happen, just not the way I'd originally planned. That night, she initiated intimacy for the first time in months. Her enthusiasm was suspicious. Her passion felt performed. Every touch seemed calculated to reassure, to reconnect, to reestablish the fictional normal. I participated, but my mind was elsewhere, noting how she avoided my eyes, how she seemed to be following a script even in this. Afterward, she curled against me, playing the role of satisfied wife. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I replied, meaning the woman I'd married 15 years ago, not the stranger wearing her face. The next morning, October 13th, our anniversary, Diane performed her usual routine. Shower by 6:30, breakfast by 7, perfectly pressed suit by 7:15. Big day, she said, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. Wish me luck. You don't need luck, I said. You're the smartest person I know. She paused, something crossing her face. Guilt, regret, then kissed me quickly. Don't wait up tonight. Depending on how the presentation goes, we might celebrate with drinks. The whole team? Just the core group. You know how it is. I knew exactly how it was. I watched her drive away, then called my office and took the day off. Personal day, I said. Family matter. I waited until 11:30, then drove to Brennan and Associates with the Salvatore's order I'd placed days ago. Chicken marsala, her favorite. Caesar salad, the tiramisu they were famous for. I added the stargazer lilies from the florist next door, completing the anniversary surprise I'd planned back when I believed my wife actually worked there. Curtis was at the security desk again. He looked up, recognized me, and his face immediately showed distress. Mr. Kowalski? I need to see Jennifer Martinez, I said calmly. Is she in? Sir, about last night. Is she in? He made the call. Jennifer came down looking professional but wary. Nathan, after our conversation last night, I'm concerned. I need you to document something, I said, pulling out my phone. My wife's current location shows her at this building. She told me she's presenting to clients here today. The Henderson campaign. Jennifer's face was carefully neutral. As I explained, she hasn't worked here since February. I know, but she's been telling people she does, using your company name, claiming to represent your firm. That's fraud, isn't it? The legal implications dawned on Jennifer's face. Has she been conducting business using our name? I believe so. She's been receiving payments for consulting work, telling people she's employed here. We need to involve legal, Jennifer said immediately. This is serious. I have documentation, I said. 8 months of false representation. But first, I need to know, did she receive any references from anyone here? Has anyone been confirming her employment? Jennifer made several calls. Within an hour, we discovered that someone named Rebecca had been verifying Diane's employment when called. The number traced back to Marcus Robinson's consulting firm. We know Marcus, Jennifer said grimly. He left on difficult terms. If he's involved in defrauding our company's reputation, he's paying her, I said, showing them the contract. As a consultant, while she pretends to still work here. The legal team assembled quickly. Corporate fraud was serious business. Using Brennan and Associates' name without permission, falsely claiming employment, potential damages to reputation, it was a litigation buffet. We'll need to investigate fully, the lead attorney said. But this appears to be criminal fraud. I left the building at 1 p.m., the Italian food cold, the flowers wilting. But I had what I needed. Brennan and Associates was now invested in exposing the fraud. They would do the heavy legal lifting. I drove to Marcus's house next. His car was in the driveway. Diane's parked behind it. The blinds were drawn, but I could see shadows moving inside. I sat there for a moment, 15 years of marriage reduced to shadows in someone else's window. Then I called Marcus's wife. Alexandra Robinson answered on the third ring. Hello? Alexandra, this is Nathan Kowalski, Diane's husband. Silence. Then, I've been expecting your call. You know? I've known about Marcus's affairs for years. This one seemed different, though. More elaborate. He's paying her, isn't he? $3,000 a month. From our joint business account, no doubt. Hang on. I heard typing. Yes, here it is. Monthly consulting fees to DK Marketing Strategies. That's her? That's her? Nathan, I'm done being the silent wife. Do you want to compare notes? We met at a coffee shop in Shadyside. Alexandra was everything Diane had probably envied. Tall, elegant, with the kind of inherited wealth that showed in understated jewelry and perfect posture. This isn't his first affair, she said, sliding a folder across the table. But it's his most expensive and most elaborate. The folder contained photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts. Marcus had a pattern. Successful women in struggling situations, offering them consultation contracts, converting professional relationships to personal ones. Your wife was different, though, Alexandra said. She created an entire fictional world. Marcus just funded it. Why didn't you divorce him earlier? Prenup, she said simply. Unless I could prove fraud affecting our business, I'd walk away with almost nothing. But this, she gestured to my evidence. This is fraud, tax fraud specifically. He's been writing off personal expenses as business costs. The IRS would be interested in that. Very interested, especially with documentation. She smiled for the first time. Your wife kept excellent records, very detailed, very incriminating. We spent 3 hours building our case. Alexandra had access to Marcus's business accounts. I had Diane's elaborate fiction documented. Together, we had enough to destroy both of them. When do we move? Alexandra asked. December 15th, I said. Let them think they've gotten away with it through the holidays. Let them get comfortable. Why wait? Because I want to do this right. No room for error, no chance for recovery. Alexandra extended her hand. Partners? Partners. I drove home to find Diane already there, opened a bottle of wine on the counter, still in her work clothes. How was the presentation? I asked. Nailed it, she said, beaming. Henderson loved everything. Tom said it was the best pitch he'd seen. That's amazing. We should celebrate. Oh, honey, I'm exhausted. Rain check? Of course. But hey, I have something for you. I pulled out the anniversary card I'd bought weeks ago, back when I thought I had a real marriage. She opened it, read my message about 15 wonderful years, and started crying. For a moment, I thought she might confess. Her tears seemed genuine, her hand shaking as she held the card. Nathan, she started. What is it? She looked at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I don't deserve you. Don't say that. No, really. You're so good. So trusting. So stable. Stable. Like I was a piece of furniture. I love you, I said, watching her flinch. I love you too, she replied, but it sounded like lines in a play. That night, she locked herself in her office for 3 hours. I could hear her on the phone, her voice occasionally rising in what sounded like argument. At one point, I heard Marcus's name clearly, followed by, "No, he doesn't suspect anything." The next weeks were an exercise in psychological torture. I watched my wife perform the role of harried marketing executive while knowing she spent her days at Marcus's house. She'd complain about coworkers who didn't exist, stress about deadlines that weren't real, celebrate victories that never happened. Emma came home for Thanksgiving. Diane missed the first day, claiming a work emergency. Mom's job is really demanding, Emma said, but there was doubt in her voice. Yes, I agreed. Very demanding. When Diane finally appeared, she was perfectly put together, apologizing profusely, bearing gifts from a business trip to Boston that had really been a long weekend with Marcus at a Cape Cod rental. I'm thinking of changing majors, Emma announced at dinner. To what? Diane asked, distracted, checking her phone. Engineering, like Dad. That got Diane's attention. Engineering? But you're so creative, honey. Marketing would suit you better. Marketing seems stressful, Emma said, looking directly at her mother. All those late nights, weekend work, constant pressure. I want a life, not just a career. Diane's face flushed. Some of us don't have the luxury of choosing life over career. Some of us do, Emma replied. We just choose not to. The tension was palpable. Later, Emma pulled me aside. Something's wrong with Mom. Work stress, I said, maintaining the fiction one last time for our daughter. Dad, I'm not stupid. Her stories don't add up. Last week she told me about a coworker named Linda, but the week before Linda was a client. She can't keep her lies straight anymore. Emma, whatever it is, just protect yourself, okay? My daughter, barely 21, seeing what I'd been blind to for months. December approached with agonizing slowness. I met with attorneys, financial advisors, private investigators. The case we were building was airtight. Fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement from Marcus's legitimate clients to fund Diane's payments. Alexandra proved to be a formidable ally. She'd discovered Marcus had done this twice before, but never this elaborately. The other women had been actual consultants doing minimal work. Diane was pure fiction, a ghost employee, a money laundering operation disguised as an affair. He's teaching her, Alexandra said during one of our planning sessions. Look at these emails. He's showing her how to hide assets, create shell companies, build alternate financial identities. For what purpose? For when she leaves you. He's setting her up to take everything while looking like the victim. The emails confirmed it. Marcus was coaching Diane on how to document fake emotional abuse, how to establish patterns that would favor her in divorce court, how to hide assets in accounts I'd never find. He did the same thing to his first wife, Alexandra said. She ended up paying him alimony while he was sleeping with her best friend. December 15th was chosen carefully, a Friday, ensuring maximum chaos before a weekend when banks were closed and lawyers were scarce. I arranged everything like an engineer planning a controlled demolition. Simultaneous strikes on multiple support structures, ensuring complete collapse. The IRS warrant was filed for that morning. The fraud complaints from Brennan and Associates scheduled for delivery. The divorce papers prepared. The asset freezes ready. The private investigator's report to the police timed perfectly. But I added personal touches. I hired an actress who looked remarkably like Diane to jog past Marcus's house that morning, ensuring neighbors would give conflicting reports about when they'd seen her. I arranged for a moving truck to arrive at our house at noon, though it would leave empty, just the visual impact for neighbors. I scheduled a locksmith for 2 p.m., making sure Diane would arrive home to find herself locked out. The night of December 14th, Diane was particularly affectionate. She made dinner, first time in months, opened expensive wine, wore the dress I'd complimented back in February. "I've been distant," she said over dessert. "Work has been consuming me, but things are about to change." "Oh. After the new year, I'm cutting back, maybe even looking for something less demanding. We could travel, spend more time together." The new year. When she and Marcus had planned to go public with their relationship. "That sounds wonderful," I said, raising my glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," she echoed, and we drank to the end of our marriage. That night, she initiated intimacy again, but I declined, claiming exhaustion. "Tomorrow's a big day," I said. "I need to be sharp." "Big day at work?" "The biggest." She kissed me goodnight, and I wondered if she knew it was goodbye. December 15th dawned gray and cold. Diane left at 7:30, complaining about year-end reviews she had to complete. "Might be late tonight," she said. "Don't wait up." "I won't." At 10 a.m., the IRS arrived at Marcus's office with a warrant. They seized computers, files, client records. Marcus was detained for questioning, his phone confiscated before he could warn Diane. At 10:15, Harold Morrison at Westfield Development, Marcus's biggest client, received the package I'd sent. Evidence of Marcus billing Diane's payments to Westfield as marketing expenses. Harold, a former Marine with zero tolerance for theft, immediately called his legal team and the police. At 10:30, Diane was served with divorce papers at Marcus's house. The process server also delivered a restraining order preventing her from entering our home or accessing our accounts. The photo he took, Diane in Marcus's robe at his front door at 10:30 a.m. on a workday, would become Exhibit A in our divorce. At 10:45, the forensic accountant executed preset transfers, moving all liquid assets from joint accounts to protected trusts. Diane's credit cards were canceled. Her car, still in my name from an old tax strategy, was reported stolen and recovered from Marcus's driveway. At 11 o'clock, Brennan and Associates' legal team arrived at Marcus's house with a cease and desist order and a lawsuit for fraud. Using their company name without permission, falsely claiming employment, damaging their reputation, the damages would run to millions. At 11:15, the police arrived to question both Diane and Marcus about fraud allegations. Neighbors would later tell me they'd never seen anything like it. Multiple police cars, unmarked sedans, even a news van someone had tipped off. By noon, the story was on local news websites. Marketing executive fake's job for 8 months to cover affair was too sensational to ignore. Diane's LinkedIn profile, still claiming employment at Brennan and Associates, was screenshot thousands of times before she could delete it. My phone exploded with calls and texts. I was in a client meeting, surrounded by witnesses, when everything went down. My shock at hearing the news was genuine. I was truly amazed that someone could lie so completely for so long. Diane called 17 times. I didn't answer. She texted increasingly frantic messages. "Nathan, what's happening? The police are here. This is insane. Call me now. You did this. You planned this. I can explain everything. Please." Emma called from Penn State. "Dad, it's all over Facebook. Is it true?" "I'm afraid so." "The job? She hasn't had a job since February?" "No." Oh my God, all those missed calls, all those times she couldn't come to my things because of work. I know, sweetheart. And Marcus Robinson? Seriously, that sleazy guy from the company parties? Yes. I'm coming home. You don't have to. I'm coming home. You shouldn't be alone. Alexandra called next. It's done. Marcus is in federal custody. The IRS found more than we knew. He's been doing this for years. Millions in tax fraud. And Diane? Released pending investigation, but she's named in multiple lawsuits. Brennan and Associates alone is seeking $2 million in damages. That evening, I came home to find Diane in the driveway, still in the clothes she'd been served in. Marcus's robe over her work dress, no shoes, mascara streaked down her face. You changed the locks, she said. The restraining order explains everything. 15 years, Nathan. 15 years and you do this to me? I didn't do anything. I just turned on the lights. You did all of this. I made a mistake. A mistake? You faked having a job for 8 months. You created an entire fictional life. You turned our marriage into a performance where I was the only one who didn't know it was fake. I was fired, okay? I was fired and I was embarrassed and Marcus offered to help. By paying you to be his mistress? It wasn't like that. The photos suggest otherwise. She went pale. You hacked my accounts? Our accounts, remember? Marriage is about sharing, except you've been sharing with Marcus, not me. I want my things. Your attorney can arrange that. My attorney? Nathan, please, we can work this out. With what? You have no job, no money, no home. You're named in fraud investigations. You're facing criminal charges. What exactly do you have to offer? She started crying then, but it felt like another performance. I loved you. Part of me still loves you. You love the stability I provided while you played out your fantasy life. That's not love, that's parasitism. Emma's car pulled into the driveway then. She got out, looked at her mother standing there in Marcus's robe, and shook her head. Mom. Emma, honey, your father has lost his mind. No, Mom, you lost yours. 8 months of lies? 8 months of fake conferences and fictional emergencies? Do you have any idea how insane that is? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You chose an elaborate fantasy over your real family. Well, enjoy the fantasy. Come on, Dad. We went inside, leaving Diane in the driveway. The police arrived an hour later. She'd tried to break in through the back door, triggering the alarm. They escorted her away, and that was the last time I saw her at our house. The next months were a cascade of consequences. Marcus's fraud went deeper than anyone imagined. He'd been using his consulting firm as a front for money laundering, billing personal expenses to clients, evading taxes for a decade. The IRS hit him with criminal charges, 18 months in federal prison, $1.2 million in fines and restitution. His client list evaporated overnight. Westfield Development sued for embezzlement. Other clients followed suit. His reputation in Pittsburgh was destroyed so thoroughly that even his country club revoked his membership. Diane's situation was worse in different ways. The fraud charges meant she couldn't claim innocent spouse status in our divorce. The fake job eliminated any claim for alimony. The evidence of planning, those emails about hiding assets and manufacturing abuse claims, meant the divorce was fault-based. Pennsylvania doesn't look kindly on adultery combined with fraud. She walked away with her clothes and a 2014 Honda Civic that was titled in her name. Nothing else. No house, no savings, no retirement, no dignity. The professional destruction was complete. Marketing is a small world in Pittsburgh. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew what Diane had done. Her Google results became a permanent monument to the scandal. No firm would touch her. Her fake references were exposed, her real ones destroyed by association. The co-working space sued her for fraud. She'd been using their address for business cards, their conference rooms for fake video calls. Another $30,000 judgment against her. Even Marcus turned on her once he realized the extent of his exposure. His lawyer argued that Diane had manipulated him, that she'd created the elaborate scheme and he'd just been trying to help a friend in need. He threw her under the bus so completely that she ended up with additional charges for conspiracy to commit tax fraud. We met once more, 3 months later, at the lawyer's office for final signatures. She looked years older, hair grown out showing gray roots, wearing what looked like Walmart clothing, the designer wardrobe long gone to pay legal fees. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. "I'm free," I replied. "That's different from happy." "I lost everything." "You threw everything away. There's a difference." "For what?" "For Marcus." "You think I loved him?" "I don't know what you loved. The excitement, the deception, the performance." She was quiet for a moment. "The job felt more real than my real life had become." Does that make sense? I created this position, this important role, these crucial projects, and when I was in it, when I was pretending, I felt more alive than I had in years. You could have gotten a real job. After being fired at 41, in this economy, Marcus offered me something else. A chance to be someone important, someone desired, someone with secrets and excitement and someone fake. Yes, she admitted, someone fake. But the fake person was more interesting than the real one had become. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Is it? Look at your life, Nathan. Every day the same. Same job, same house, same routine. When's the last time you felt truly alive? This morning, I said. When I woke up in my own bed, in my own house, with my real life and real problems and real solutions. That's what alive feels like. Dealing with reality. She signed the papers. As she stood to leave, she turned back. The night before everything collapsed, you knew, didn't you? You'd already set everything in motion. Yes. Why did you wait? Why not confront me? Because confrontation would have given you time to maneuver, to create new lies, to hide assets, to spin the narrative. I needed you comfortable, confident, unprepared. You're colder than I thought. No, I'm an engineer. I identify structural problems and solve them efficiently. I was a structural problem? Your lies were. You were the woman I loved for 15 years who decided to become someone else. I couldn't save her, but I could stop her from destroying everything else. She left then, driving away in her aging Civic to her studio apartment in Youngstown, to her job as a receptionist at a car dealership, the only place that didn't Google applicants. Emma graduated the next spring, changed her major to engineering as she'd mentioned at Thanksgiving. In her graduation speech as summa cum laude, she talked about the importance of building on solid foundations. Sometimes, she said, the most important lessons come from learning what not to do. When you see a structure built on lies, you understand the value of truth. When you watch something collapse because it wasn't real, you appreciate the things that are. I knew she was talking about Diane, though she never mentioned her mother directly. Alexandra Robinson became an unexpected friend. After her divorce from Marcus was finalized, she got everything, the prenup voided by his fraud. She started a foundation for women who'd been financially abused by partners. She asked me to serve on the board. You understand the damage that financial deception does, she said. It's not just about money. It's about trust, reality, the foundation of your life being revealed as fantasy. The foundation has helped dozens of women, and some men, recover from similar situations. Not all as elaborate as Diane's performance, but all involving the same core betrayal. Someone they trusted creating a false reality that they were forced to live in unknowingly. I dated eventually. A woman named Carol from my engineering firm divorced herself, aggressively honest to the point of bluntness. I don't do subtle, she warned on our first date. I say what I mean. I'm terrible at social games. If that's a problem, we should end this now. That's the opposite of a problem, I said. We've been together 2 years now. She tells me when my jokes aren't funny, when I'm being stubborn, when she's had a bad day. After Diane's elaborate performances, Carol's blunt truth feels like fresh oxygen. The house is different now. I converted Diane's locked office into a workshop where I build furniture, solid pieces that will last generations, that bear weight, that are exactly what they appear to be. No false panels, no hidden compartments, no deception in the grain. Sometimes I drive past the Brennan and Associates building. Curtis still works security. He nods when he sees me, the acknowledgement between men who've witnessed something extraordinary. He was there when my world revealed itself as partially fictional. He saw me leave with cold Italian food and dying flowers, saw me return with lawyers and police reports. The building stands there, 30 floors of real employment, real workers, real purposes. Every morning at 7:30, actual employees badge in for actual jobs. They attend real meetings about real projects for real clients. The mundane reality of it seems almost magical now. I kept one memento from the marriage, Diane's fake business cards. Diane Kowalski, Senior Marketing Analyst, Brennan and Associates. Embossed, professional, perfect except for being completely fictional, I framed one. Hung it in my workshop as a reminder that things can look solid while being hollow, can appear structural while bearing no weight, can seem real while being entirely performed. A year after the divorce, I received a letter forwarded through her attorney. Nathan, I know you engineered the collapse. The timing was too perfect, too coordinated. But you're right. You just revealed what was already broken. I built a house of cards and you showed everyone it was fake. The fake job became more real to me than my real life. I lived in that fiction so completely that I forgot it was fiction. The morning commute to nowhere, the projects that didn't exist, the co-workers who were just Marcus's employees playing along, it all felt more substantial than our actual marriage had become. I'm nobody now. No career, no family, no identity, except as a cautionary tale. The irony is that I'm finally employed, scanning paperwork at a dealership, making $15 an hour, no fiction required. It's the most honest work I've done in years. Marcus is in prison. His wife took everything. The other women he'd been stringing along have come forward. Turns out I wasn't special. I was just the most elaborate mark he'd found. The one most willing to create an entire fantasy world. I practice telling the truth now. Simple sentences. I work at a car dealership. I live in a studio apartment. I destroyed my marriage for an 8-month performance. Each true statement feels like speaking a foreign language. You asked once what I loved. I love the lie itself. The thrill of maintaining it, the complexity of it, the artistry of keeping it all straight. Every successful deception was a high no truth could match. That's my real tragedy. Not that I lost everything, but that I preferred the performance to the reality. Even now, writing this true letter, I miss the fiction. I miss being the successful marketing executive who didn't exist. She was the best thing I ever created, and she was nothing. Don't forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me. Just know that the punishment fits the crime. I have to live in reality now, and for someone who spent 8 months preferring fiction, that's a life sentence. Diane. I read it twice, then filed it with the divorce papers. There was nothing to respond to, no conversation to continue. She'd finally told the truth, but like everything else about her, even her honesty felt like a performance. Emma asked me once if I regretted how I'd handled things. Should I have confronted her immediately? I asked. Given her a chance to explain, tried counseling? That's not what I mean, Emma said. Do you regret the thoroughness? The complete destruction? You didn't just end the marriage, you ended her entire false life. She ended it herself the day she started lying. I just chose the timing of the revelation. But the coordination, Dad. The IRS, the lawsuits, the police, the media, all hitting at once. It was efficient, I said. When you demolish a structure, you don't do it halfway. You ensure complete collapse, or the remaining pieces become dangerous projectiles. Is that how you see it? As a demolition? That's what it was. She built a false structure. I identified the load-bearing lies and removed them simultaneously. The collapse was inevitable once the truth was revealed. And you don't feel guilty? About what? About not allowing her to continue defrauding people? About protecting our assets from someone who is documenting fake abuse to steal them? About exposing an 8-month elaborate deception? Emma was quiet for a moment. I guess when you put it that way, there's no other way to put it. Your mother created an alternate reality and forced us all to live in it without our knowledge or consent. That's a form of abuse no one talks about. The theft of your right to make informed decisions about your own life. I never thought of it that way. Every day for 8 months, I made decisions based on false information she provided. Where to live, what to spend, how to support her, all based on lies. She stole my ability to navigate reality. That's unforgivable. Carol asked me once if I could ever trust again after Diane. I trust, I said, but I verify. That sounds exhausting. Less exhausting than discovering your entire life is partially fictional. Fair point. We've built something real together, Carol and I. Not exciting like Diane's double life, not dramatic like her collapse, but solid. Real jobs, real problems, real solutions. We argue about real things, make up over real issues, plan real futures based on real circumstances. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Curtis hadn't frowned at his computer that night, if Jennifer Martinez hadn't been available to come to the building, if I'd just left the sushi and gone home believing Diane was working late. The lie would have continued until January, when they'd planned to go public. Diane would have discovered her job was being eliminated again, been devastated, leaned on me for support. Marcus would have coincidentally reached out with a legitimate offer. They'd have worked together, grown closer, and eventually Diane would have asked for a separation, claiming we'd grown apart. The script she'd written, literally written, I found it in her emails, was elegant in its manipulation. I would have been the boring husband she'd outgrown, the stable man who couldn't match her ambition. Marcus would have been the exciting future, the passionate second act. The 8 months of deception would have been rewritten as 8 months of soul-searching, of Diane finding herself. Instead, she's scanning documents in Youngstown, $200,000 in debt from legal judgments, her professional reputation destroyed, her personal reputation worse. Marcus is in federal prison, his business dissolved, his assets seized, his marriage ended, his future non-existent. The efficiency of the collapse still satisfies me, not from cruelty, but from precision. Every lie exposed, every deception documented, every false support removed. It was engineering at its purest, identifying a dangerous structure and ensuring its complete, controlled demolition. The Brennan and Associates building still stands, still employs real people doing real work. Sometimes I park across from it at lunch, watching workers come and go, badges beeping, meetings happening, actual business being conducted. The beautiful, mundane reality of it all. Curtis retired last month. At his farewell party, I was invited. Oddly enough, the security team remembered me. He pulled me aside. That night, he said, when you came with dinner for your wife, I've seen a lot of bad moments in that lobby, but that was the worst. Watching you realize, it was a gift, I said. You gave me the truth. Hell of a gift. Better than Italian food and flowers for a woman who wasn't there. He laughed, clapped my shoulder. You did good, How you handled it. Clean. Thorough. No loose ends. I'm an engineer, I said. We don't do loose ends. The truth has a weight to it that lies can never replicate. It's dense, substantial, load-bearing. You can build on truth, even painful truth. You can't build on fiction, no matter how elaborate or beautiful the performance. Diane built an 8-month theatrical production with a supporting cast, multiple sets, and daily performances. But theater ends when the curtain falls. Reality continues indefinitely. Boring, perhaps. Predictable, maybe. But ultimately the only thing that bears weight. My life now is smaller but denser. Each element is verified, tested, proven real. My relationship with Carol is built on absolute transparency. She has all my passwords. I have hers, not from suspicion but from the simple principle that truth needs no protection. Emma graduated, became an engineer like she'd planned, builds bridges that will stand for centuries. She dates carefully, asks direct questions, refuses to accept vague answers. Her mother's elaborate deception taught her to value simple truth. I'd rather be alone than live in someone else's fiction, she told me once. That's wisdom. That's trauma, she corrected, but useful trauma. The workshop I built in Diane's former office has produced 17 pieces of furniture. Each one is solid hardwood, no veneer, no particle board, no deception in the grain. What you see is what exists, all the way through. Boring, perhaps, but structural. Carol helped me deliver the latest piece, a dining table for a young couple who just bought their first house. As we carried it in, the wife mentioned she worked at Brennan & Associates. Marketing department, she said brightly. Just started last month. Good company, I said. Solid foundation. Oh, do you know people there? I knew someone who claimed to work there once. Turned out she didn't. The woman laughed, thinking I was joking. That would be crazy. Who lies about where they work? You'd be surprised, Carol said, catching my eye. People create all kinds of elaborate fictions. Well, I really work there, the woman said, still laughing. Badge and everything. You can check with security. Curtis knows everyone. Curtis retired, I said, but I'm sure the new person is just as thorough. We left them with their solid table in their real house for their real life. No performance required, no audience needed, no fiction to maintain, just the beautiful, boring truth of actual existence. That's what Diane never understood. Reality doesn't need embellishment. A real job is better than a fictional one, even if the real one is scanning documents for $15 an hour. A real marriage is better than a performed one, even if the real one has problems. A real life is better than an elaborate lie, even if the real life is ordinary. But for 8 months, she chose fiction over truth, performance over reality, Marcus over marriage. She built an elaborate stage set and performed her one-woman show about a successful marketing executive who didn't exist. The show was a limited run. 8 months, no intermission, closing night December 15th. The reviews were brutal. The theater is condemned. The actress is performing now in a much smaller venue to an audience of none. Meanwhile, the Brennan & Associates building stands 30 floors tall, housing real employees doing real work for real companies. No drama, no deception, no elaborate performances. Just the simple, structural, load-bearing truth of actual employment. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is tell the truth. Sometimes the most dramatic gesture is revealing reality. Sometimes the greatest performance is refusing to perform at all. That's what I learned from 15 years of marriage and 8 months of lies. The truth doesn't need rehearsal. It just needs to be told, documented, and filed with the appropriate authorities on a carefully coordinated Friday morning in December. The rest is just paperwork and consequences, both of which are perfectly, boringly, structurally real.